that this week we were going to start Atheist Thursdays. And we're doing something a little bit different than what Aaron and I do on Phreology on Fridays. But this particular forum, this particular vehicle is dedicated to giving a voice to literal atheists and some agnostics. We'll let the agnostics in the room sometimes, but this is really for the atheists, the people that have really deconstructed down to ground zero. And so today, in this first episode, I have an awesome guest, and you guys are going to absolutely love her. She is a TikTok sensation. I mean, she's got like, I don't know, 16,000 followers and hundreds of thousands of views. She's got a ton of content out there and is really, really good. She is brilliant, articulate, smart, and funny, and all of those things make her who she is. So I want to introduce to some of you my friend Chen from the Philippines. Chen, how are you this morning for you and this evening for me?
Uh-huh. Actually, I just woke up. I'm gonna take my breakfast after this live. Yeah,
Oh,
but otherwise, I'm good. I'm so glad to be here on your podcast. So thank you for inviting me.
it's awesome to have you. And one of the things that really kind of struck me about you is that you're a young person. Matter of fact, I have a son your age, as a matter of fact,
Oh,
and um, and but for someone to have come to a really galvanized point in their life like you have, so tell me, how did you, or let me ask you this: what was your upbringing like, and then how did you come to be an atheist?
mm-hmm. So my parents are both born again Christians. So that's like evangelical Christianity, basically. And they were Catholics before, but they
Mm,
converted to born again. Yeah. And growing up, they introduced me to their religion, and I always had to go to church with them. I attended Sunday schools. I became a Sunday school teacher at one point. Yeah, which is I really regret it right now because um I I didn't want to teach all those young children some bullshit. Yeah. Yeah. And but aside from that, I also enrolled in very religious schools, two Catholic schools and one Baptist school.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And then um every summer I would go to like church camps and concerts, like Hillsong concerts, Planet Shakers. Yeah, because of my dad. Like my dad is a religious leader in our church until now,
Mhm.
actually. Yeah. So he always takes us to those events. And then um growing up, I think I wasn't really able to resonate with my religion because I always felt like I was a queer person.
Mm,
Yeah. So I was very vocal about LGBTQ plus rights at the age of 13. And then
wow.
my parents, yeah. So I never had like a sexist or a homophobic face because of religion. Yeah. So so my parents were really confused, and they were telling me that, oh, it's a sin to be queer and all that all that brainwashing stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think what really made me an atheist was when um I noticed that the amount of sexism in my church was really high, in a sense that women weren't allowed to speak in church. They weren't
Mm,
allowed to speak in the pulpit because of that one verse in the New Testament. I
yeah.
forgot the verse. Yeah. And then women were also like made to wear like special headdresses or like a
Mm,
headpiece here during the communion. and they asked my mom, why did we have to wear those headpieces? And then she said, oh, it's because we it's a symbol of submission. And then I asked her, how come the men don't wear it? How come only the women? And then
Wow.
she said, because women are supposed to submit to men and to God. So I was shocked. And I didn't want to worship a God that created women to be inferior than men. You
Yeah.
feel? Yeah. And then at that point, I wasn't really an atheist yet. I was more of like an angry Christian. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I didn't really care if I was going to hell or not at that point. Yeah. And then um I read like some parts of the Bible, and I realized that, oh, this is so ridiculous. Yeah, like it's just full of fantastical passages, but also at the same time very bigoted passages.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. So after reading like the very sexist parts of the Bible, I started researching about Christianity, and then I found out that the Bible was like heavily edited and mistranslated,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that it was it's a collection of plagiarized Mesopotamian fairy tales. Yeah. So after that point, I became like an atheist, and I started speaking up through TikTok.
And that's amazing. Now I remember when we connected on TikTok, I reached out to you because I saw one of your videos, and then I went to your page and I think I may have watched all of your videos, right? Uh, but I was like, wow. I said, this is amazing, because you're so very clear, so very pointed about how you phrase questions, how you articulate your points, and all of that. And so when I reached out to you, you said that you had kind of backed away from TikTok because of the blowback that you were getting. Tell me about that. The negative feedback you got.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So two of my videos were shared to an international Christian Facebook group.
Mm,
And then aside from the fact that I'm an atheist, I also got bullied because I'm a woman and I'm a Filipina. So yeah, so there's like 2 degrees of bullying there.
wow.
Yeah. And then I got doxed, like my private Facebook link was posted on that Facebook group. So yeah, I received like a lot of hateful comments from Christians. And even on TikTok, I received death threats on TikTok. Yeah. Some people would actually comment Christianity or death on my TikToks.
Oh my.
Yeah, uh and that made me like really scared. But I realized that I didn't have to be controlled by these people. Yeah. If I'd have to eat death threats for breakfast, then why not? They're only good behind the keyboard anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's something that I always said. Like, you and I haven't met in person, but I'm a pretty big guy.
Hmm.
Like I'm 6'1" and about 250 pounds, right? So I'm not a small guy. But in addition to that, I'm very skilled in martial arts, and I'm ex-military and all of that. So I always tell people, listen, you can anything that I say online, if you know me, you know I can back it up in person. So uh,
Hmm.
I don't worry about that. But I know for you, it's like you know people saying things, and honestly, with the craziness that goes on in the world now, you really don't know when somebody will show up at your doorstep and do something really really crazy. But again, I admire you because in the Philippines is a very religious country. We talked about that in the green room. That primarily Catholic. a growing body of born again evangelical Christians and a lot of Muslims, a growing Muslim population. And so for someone to say, I mean, anyone in the Philippines to say I'm an atheist, that's got to be really challenging. And then it's got to be even more challenging to be a young person, and then even more challenging still to to be a woman and doing this. And so I kind of want to I want to tap into that headspace and that experience. What is it like trying to navigate all of that on a day-to-day basis?
Um, so there's like intersectional discrimination.
Mm,
So I got discriminated on the basis of being an atheist, a woman, a member of the LGBTQ plus community, and like a woman of color.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of degrees of discrimination right there. But here in the Philippines, a lot of people aren't um, educated on atheism yet, and they immediately think that atheism means Satanism, that
Mm,
yeah, that we believe in the devil. And aside from that, they also don't know that atheists can talk about religion. Just because we don't believe in something doesn't mean we can't talk about that,
yeah.
especially since we've experienced it before. Yeah. So I always see that on my comment section, like, you're an atheist. Why do you talk about religion so much? You shouldn't bother yourself with it.
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah, like they just don't get it. And here in the Philippines, it's actually really bad to be to come out as an atheist, because you're gonna get discriminated. Like your some of my professors are,
Mm,
yeah, my professor, um he he basically said that he's sad because some scientists become atheists. Yeah, because he's like very religious. And then I have this one professor who made me lead the prayer at school. So for context, like, yeah, I study in a Catholic university. Yeah,
mm,
and then I was forced to lead the prayer. So I just prayed like a generic one. And then my professor told me, "Oh, you sound like a parrot. You're not genuine enough." And then I was like, "Oh, sorry, I'm an atheist and I don't pray."
oh
And
boy.
then yeah, and then he went on a 5 minute rant that extended the whole class. Like we were supposed to be dismissed at that point, but we got detained because of his rant, because of me. Yeah. So I felt very sorry for my classmates that time because I really wanted to leave. And then my professor was like, even though you're an atheist, you still need to believe in a higher power. Like, does that even make sense? That defeats the very essence of being an
Yeah.
atheist.
Let's double
Yeah.
click on that. Let's double click on that. Because I get that all the time. They say, well, there has to be some higher power. There has to be some
Yes.
intelligent design or whatever. So tell me about your views on that. I mean, do you believe in a higher power, or are you fully atheist? Because somebody had asked in the chat, they said, "Are you anti-religion or atheist?" And so,
Uh-huh.
I want to kind of double click on that and have you drill into it.
Um, I don't personally believe in like a higher power because there's no sufficient proof for it. I don't want to use the God of the gaps fallacy to just make sense of the universe and everything, because that's just lazy. you know i'd rather I'd rather wait for like um verifiable and empirical evidence if ever there is a higher power. And because of that, I consider myself an agnostic atheist. So I'm not really like gnostic atheist. Like I'm still open to the fact that there may be a higher power, but the people who are claiming that there is one should prove it first to me.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Um,
that's my stand.
I'm the
But
same way. It's like, the burden of proof is not on the unbeliever. The burden of proof is
yes,
on the believer.
exactly.
Yeah.
Hmm. And for the to answer the anti-religion thing, I guess I'm not really anti-religion because I acknowledge some benefits that religion gives to people. Like it's how they cope. Especially here in the Philippines, there are a lot of marginalized and poor people, and
Hmm.
they have nothing else to hold to except for religion. So if that makes them happier, then so be it. Yeah, so I acknowledge that fact about religion. But what I don't like about religion, especially organized ones, is whenever they show their beliefs onto non-believers and they tell non-believers they would go to hell, and that they meddle with the separation of church and state. That's really what irks me. Yeah.
Wow. I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking you ought to run for public office.
I'm not gonna win here in the Philippines.
Or maybe at least consider a career in the law or something. I mean, because you
Oh yeah.
go ahead.
Actually, I'm taking up legal management right now for my
Okay.
pre-law. Yeah, and I'm going to go to law school afterwards.
You know what? Man, I can see that because you're so pointed and concise in again articulating your points. And so this is one of the things I've said. People ask me this the same question all the time. They say, "Why are you so anti-religion?" And see, as opposed to you, I'll say, "Yes, I am very anti-religion." While uh, when I'm dealing with individuals, right, I'm very kind. I'm very nice. Even people that believe, and I have lots of friends that are still Christians, right? Now,
Mhm,
me personally, I believe that they're trapped in a form of slavery, and I look at myself as a modern day Harriet Tubman trying to lead them from the
mhm.
plantation. But the thing is that I believe I'm not kind to religion at all because I really believe that religion has done a total mind fuck on
Yes.
humanity. So because of that, you have to do something drastic, something bombastic or whatever to try to shake people out of that thinking. And so when people ask, they say, "Well, if you get rid of religion, what are you going to replace it with?" And see, that's the question that really frustrates me. Why do you have to replace it with anything? That's like, I have a friend on here that's watching, and he's going to be my guest next week, Tommy Stewart. And Tommy is a cancer survivor. He's like a stage 4 cancer survivor. And so if you were to ask Tommy, well, now that you get healed of cancer, what are you going to replace the cancer with? That's dumb as hell, right?
Yes.
So if you get rid of religion, basically you're getting rid of a disease, you're getting rid of a cancer. So what do you replace it with? Well, okay, logic and reason. How about health and strength? How about joy and peace? Those are the things that I would replace religion with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, I also share the same views as you, because for me, religion was like um, it's like an invented disease, like an imaginary disease. Yeah. So the church sells an imaginary the church preaches an imaginary disease, which is original sin, and
Hmm.
then you can cure it through like believing in religion. Yeah, so um for me, I don't really replace religion with anything.
Yeah,
I just, yeah, I don't see the point, because like some ex-Christians, they become engaged in spirituality,
yeah,
and they um they subscribe to other religions, but that's I don't think that's for me, because I really value, like, empirical data, and I don't want to believe in something that doesn't that's like very questionable.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look at everything as like it has to meet three criteria. One, it has to be tangible, right? Something that you can perceive with your senses. It has to be measurable, that you can quantify it, And then last but not least, it has to be repeatable, because people say, well,
Yes.
I pray and it works for me. Okay, well, what about the mother who prayed that her child lived through the night and he doesn't? You know, that you mean to say that God answered your prayer for you to find your car keys, or for you to get a job, or to get a meal, but God allowed this child to die in his mother's arms? Come on, man, really? And that's so it's those three things. If it doesn't meet that criteria, then I don't think that it's worthy of belief. And I always say this too. I gotta throw this in here, because this is one of my favorite cliches, and I made it up myself. It's this: that if what you believe cannot withstand a Google search, it ain't worth believing in.
Right, right. Also, it bothers me how many Christians use excuses to justify like their God not answering their prayers.
Mhm.
Like it's either yes, no, or wait. Or
Yeah.
like, oh, God works in mysterious ways. Oh, it's just not my time. It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah, I always say to people like that, I said, what if your doctor is getting ready to perform surgery on you, and he said, and before she's about to operate on you, she says, well, I work in mysterious ways. You know, how much confidence is that going to give you?
Yeah. Like they're I think they're just trying to, fight the cognitive dissonance whenever they make excuses for their God.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too, is the mental gymnastics that a lot
Yes.
of believers engage in to try to connect the dots with this and try to make it work. And it's like the proverbial square peg in a round hole kind of thing, right? It doesn't fit. So what you do is you try to shave the edges, or you'll throw a little lard or grease on the thing, and try to force fit it. It's always trying to make something work that doesn't work.
Yes.
And
Uh-huh.
it's funny, like you know case in point, like I do these videos on TikTok, and I call them Bible bullshit for beginners. And the reason why I
Yeah,
call it
I've watched some.
the reason why I call it that is because I think that most people really don't think about what's in the Bible. They kind of go through their Christian walk on autopilot, right? That they just kind of go through the motions, but they never really give it any thought. And so when you sit up and think about it, like, okay, like the Tower of Babel, they said the Tower of Babel was like maybe 400 feet tall, which was a mighty feat back then, right? For Bronze Age people. But now you have the Burj Khalifa in Dubai that's 2,700 feet tall. And the Saudis were getting ready to build a tower called the Kingdom Tower that was going to be like over 3,000 feet tall. And then you have airplanes that fly at 35,000 feet, and people are in space hundreds of miles above space, or above Earth, and even going to the moon, which is a quarter of a million miles away. And God hasn't struck down any of this. He hasn't confused any languages. So I'm like, okay, either either God is asleep at the wheel, and doesn't care, or he just doesn't exist.
Yeah. Plus, it's really it's not historically accurate like the Tower of Babel. Like
Mhm.
languages don't just spring up from one place.
Right.
Yeah. So if you learn about like other subjects like history and science, you would really question your religion. And the funny thing is that these Christians, whenever something goes against um, a widely accepted interpretation of a particular verse or passage, they really try to change it to fit the modern narrative. Like the Tower of Babel, they can just say that, oh, it's just figurative language, it's a metaphor.
Yeah. But here's
Yeah.
the thing: you hit on a really good point. I want to drill into that too, because people will say, "Oh, well, the Garden of Eden was metaphorical, or the Tower of Babel was metaphorical." But then what Paul said about about paying the man of God or whatever, right? That's literal. Okay, so you're going to try to nuance what is literal and what is figurative, right? But this book is supposed to be a guide and a rule for life. How do you make something metaphorical, pertinent to real life? And that was something that challenged me also.
Yeah, like they take the good verses literally, but the bad verses metaphorically, and they never run out of excuses to justify it, whether it's just a mistranslation or oh that was the time. Times were different back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another one too. Like you think about this, right? Like the Ten Commandments. The Ten
Hmm.
Commandments, the first four of the Ten Commandments are all about kissing God's ass, right? That's what the
Yeah.
first four are all about. And then the rest of it is dealing with things that is common sense. Don't steal, don't kill, don't covet. No, that's all common sense. And you don't need religion in order to know that. You just know innately that these things aren't right. But I'm thinking, okay, well, how about a commandment saying to treat women equal to men, or that you should not
Exactly.
money, or that things that are really meaningful to the human condition, right?
Or
Or
that.
that you
Uh-huh.
should care for the poor, kind of thing. Those things would make way more sense than the first four verses saying, okay, I'm God, and you really need to make sure you understand I'm God, and you really need to kiss my ass, and you need to learn how to kiss it well, right?
Uh-huh. I was actually thinking the same thing. Like, um, the Ten Commandments, they're not really um uh, comprehensive because they take up
Right.
so much space for the God of the Bible. And why didn't the God of the Bible include, oh, do not own slaves, do not rape.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like you think
Maybe.
about it,
Uh-huh.
God could have covered some real shit there, but he just, he passed it up. And then like when you look at the whole Levitical law, don't wear mixed fabrics, don't cook.
Exactly. Oh my
Milk.
gosh.
I'm like, but wait a minute,
Yeah.
how about slaves? How about don't rape, or how about not claiming people from the conquered people as your property, and all of these things. There's so much that if you think about it, and this is the other thing too. That when you look at history books, you look at science books, you look at philosophy books or medical books, that they're all revised over time. It's like for
Yes.
example, Grey's Anatomy has been revised, you know, many times, right? Oliver Wendell Holmes's The Common Law has been revised many times to basically uh, add additional content that is relevant to modern day life. But here you have the Bible, and you say, well, that's the word of God, and you can't mess with it, and it can't be touched. And if you add any jot or tittle to it, then you're cursed into the third or fourth generation. And I'm like, come on, really, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Plus, the thing is that um wait, oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought. I just relate to your point so much because even like the constitutions of other countries are revised every
Mm,
now and then.
yeah.
And the Bible is just, it just stays as is, even though a lot of progressive beliefs now go against the Bible. So I think it's still it's a harmful instrument, to use to young children. Like, you're you're basically teaching centuries old traditions that don't really apply anymore in this current era, and that could like meddle with like their morality, or how they perceive other people, or how they treat people. And that's what I'm worried about, like indoctrination.
So let me ask you this: when you are having conversations with your friends, right? Um, and you share. your thoughts with them, how is that received? How does that play out with people in your generation?
Mm. So, um, I'd like to be close to atheists only, but I have like some Christian friends.
Mhm.
But the thing is, um, I'm really passionate about bashing religion. It's like very therapeutic about it. So, yeah, it's very therapeutic for me. So, and I know that my Christian friends will be very offended. So, I just always talk about it with my atheist friends. But, um, I have tried to like convert some of my Christian friends into atheism, or like at least not believing in Christianity anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it kind of worked. But for the others, I think they're just too brainwashed at this point.
But
Yeah.
anyway, I've come, I have like, I don't know, I guess a methodology or an approach to this, and that's that I don't try to convert anybody. And it's funny because when I was a pastor, when I was a Christian, it was a big, it was a feather in my cap to convert people over to Christianity, to say the sinner's prayer with them and all of that. And I'm thinking of all these souls that I've won, for Jesus. And but now I'm like, I don't I don't tell anybody you should think like me.
Mm-hmm.
What I tell people is that you should think, period. Because here's the thing is that if you think and you are intellectually honest about your thought and about what you ingest and process, if you're intellectually honest, you cannot walk away believing. You at the very least you'll walk away agnostic and okay, I'm not sure. But to say that it's so funny. I had a conversation, or I posted something on Facebook about how Christians really have to believe some really crazy shit in order to have in order to, fortify their faith. And so this one guy, and one of the things, one of these points was like whether or not Jesus existed. And that's a whole nother subject there. But this guy said, well, of course Jesus existed because Tacitus and Josephus both said that he did. And I said, okay, great. Tacitus and Josephus were born after Jesus died, allegedly died, right? So there's no way that they could be contemporaries of his, and no way that they could have any firsthand knowledge. And this guy just, he went on and on and on, and I gave him empirical proof. I cited sources and showed him that there was no way that Josephus's and even now theologians and historians say that the what they call the testimonium Flavianum, which is what Josephus wrote about Jesus. It's like one. It's not even a paragraph. It's like three sentences, and and when you look at it in the context of what's before it and what's after it, it doesn't make any sense. You could tell that it was inserted there. And so when you tell people that that's spurious, that Josephus wasn't a contemporary of Jesus, that Tacitus wasn't, Pliny wasn't, all of the people that wrote anything about Jesus, there is no firsthand account of this guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this guy continued on. I mean, I think that there were maybe 50 or 60 people on this thread that they were going in on this guy and saying, you can't be that dense. But this is the thing. And I don't want to insult anybody individually, but the thing is that what faith does is it causes you to subordinate logic and reason. And when you do that, now you're saying, okay, I'm it's like saying I'm okay with getting in my car and driving it while I'm both drunk and blindfolded. You know. So anyway, that was a little rant I had to share because it's like people cling doggedly, tenaciously to what they believe. Because here's the thing. I think that what it is that deep down inside, people don't like to be wrong, right? And
Yeah.
when the stakes, the perceived stakes for giving up faith is incredibly high, because it's like basically your quote unquote eternal soul, right? And and so I think that because the stakes are so perceptibly high to them, that it's impossible to let it go. And the
Mm-hmm.
only way,
Yes.
like for me, somebody had to tell me something that was so profound that it shook me to my foundation, and I had to go back and reevaluate everything. And I think that's what has to happen to most people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Plus, I'd also like to add on your rant about the existence of Jesus Christ. So
Mhm.
it's one thing to prove that Jesus existed, and then it's another to prove that he's actually a God. And I
Yeah.
think that's what a lot of Christians are missing. They think just because Jesus, there's just because they're like um, faulty evidence that Jesus exists means like Christianity is right. They don't know that those are two different things, proving his existence and proving his like being a god.
Well, you'll want to stay tuned to this space because I have a guest coming on that wrote 4 books about why Jesus never existed, and
Mhm.
it's all with very heavy scholarship. It's not just something flighty or anything. This guy really did the work. He did the homework, and he does this so deftly. But the guy's
Mhm.
name is David Fitzgerald, and I encourage you to go out and look on Amazon and get his books because you know I started reading this stuff. A couple of them I actually read, and a couple of them I've had an audio book, but I listen to them all the time, and I'm like, holy crap, this guy really got it. And there's no proof. So let me ask you this, because one of the things that I like to do in this show is open the floor up for questions, and so I can share the link in the Facebook, and if anybody wants to join in, they can. And I moderate this heavily because it's like if people are uh, polite, they even if I don't agree with them, they get to stay. But when people come on and they become assholes, I'll blank them out. I'll cut it short. And that's the nice thing about having the controls like this. So, um, but if you'd like to do that, a couple of things. I don't know um, if you could see the chat, um, or the
Oh yeah, I
comments.
can actually see the chat.
So I want to go through some of these because there's some really interesting comments in here.
Sure.
And so we talked about Danielle. She said, "Are you anti-religious or atheist?" And I think we covered that. Tommy Stewart, who will be here next week, he said, "Man, very impressed already. So brave, and that you knowing that there is a thing called agnostic atheism is a real thing. That's good." Uh, yeah, I think Tommy wants to be your campaign manager if you run for office. Um,
Thank you, Tommy.
And then Juan Sebastian and in Inaki Ericard, he says, "I'm Filipino and I strongly support you, Chen." Tommy
Oh,
says,
thank you so much. Thank you for the kind words.
Tommy says, "Replace it with life, replacing religion with life." I love that, man. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and Juan says something that I think that this is a Tagalog word. He says, "Mabuhay."
Yeah, mabuhay. I think it
Yeah.
means welcome or something. I'm not
Okay.
sure.
And so Danielle has another question. She says, "What is identifying with the body as something separate from the self? Meaning we don't refer to ourself as body, we say my body." What is your take on that, Chen?
Well, for me, I'm a monist. I don't think we have like a soul that goes to an afterlife or something. If we die, we just die. Like,
Mm,
yeah, so I don't believe in a soul. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, and for me, I think I believe in consciousness, right? And I
Yeah,
believe that,
consciousness. Yeah,
yeah,
but
not a
soul, no.
soul, like
Yeah.
something that's as a tangible vessel. I think that
Mm-hmm.
we're all not containers of energy, but conduits of energy. In other words, energy passes through us as long as the body is able to
Mm-hmm.
sustain that. And then when the body is no longer able to sustain that, the energy passes to another or through another conduit. I believe in the law of conservation. I don't say I'll believe in it, but I subscribe to that theory that the law of conservation says that energy is neither created nor destroyed. So that whatever I am in terms of my energy has always existed and it will always exist. It just won't pass through this vessel anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And let's see. Armenia Zavala says, for someone who doesn't believe in the Bible, why do you talk about it so much? Why have a whole show on debunking the Bible? If you don't believe in God, then why talk about it? Chen, I'm going to let you handle that one first, and then I'll bring up the rear on it.
So the thing about a lot of ex-Christians is that we have personally suffered a lot of religious trauma, and um debunking the Bible is one way to, you know, to heal that trauma,
Thank
because
you.
yeah, you've been indoctrinated in it your whole life. You basically like almost did not have a life before leaving Christianity. Like I felt that God owned me and that he was watching my every action and he was reading all my thoughts. I was being policed. So to be able to um, deconstruct it, it's really therapeutic for me.
Mhm.
And I get to you know, debunk all the harmful beliefs that were taught to me ever since I was a toddler. And just because I don't believe in something doesn't mean I can't talk about it.
Right.
Especially since I've suffered from this religion.
Hmm.
So yes, so it's like what you said is like being a cancer survivor, you know, like
Yep.
some cancer survivors, like um they are advocates um on educating other people about cancer. And that's what I do as a TikTok influencer talking about religion. I try to educate like other Christians who are suffering from religious trauma to
Mm.
and make them criticize their own religion.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I believe in anything that can withstand a critique. It probably isn't worth persisting or surviving. And one of the things that I've learned is that you can find out how effective you really are by the resistance that you get. Because if you think about it, a fish swimming with the current, right? I forget who said this, but it's an old quote. It says that even a dead fish can swim with the stream, right? But when you're alive, you're encountering some resistance, and when you come up with something that is counter to what is commonly accepted, then that also is going to meet with resistance. And one of the things that I find is that I've seen this with people that comment on yours. I don't know if you're connected with Eve Was Framed on TikTok or not.
Oh,
uh,
I follow her.
yeah, she's amazing. We had her on Phreology Friday, but the people that come at people like her and people like you, people like Tommy, is another guy, RL Fire, that's on here. That you're going against something, and the more you begin to unpack it and expose it, the more resistance that comes. So that's that's the thing. When you're I talk about religion because and like for me, honestly, I don't need to do any of this. I have a stellar career. I have a wonderful family. I have a beautiful home. I drive nice cars. Life is good for me, honestly. I could walk away from this and be fine. But I was also a pastor, a preacher, a theologian, for most of my adult life. And I know the harm that it does. And so
Mhm.
what I do, this is the way I look at it. What I do, I consider it a public service. I'm doing something to help people. I'm not charging it.
Yes.
I'm not expecting a tithe. I'm not expecting an offering. I don't expect anybody to pay me. I'm doing this for free because I think that, like, Chen, let me tell you, 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago now, that when I came out and said I'm an atheist, right? Immediately, the first thing that went through my mind, I thought that I was going to go through all of this, travail in my mind, and that I would be unhappy, and that I would lose friends, and then I would lose social status, and all of this other stuff. And as it turns out, I have more peace, I have more comfort, I have more joy than I've ever had in my life, ever. so, so it's like, so when people say, well, why do you do this? I do this to help. And I'm not telling anybody to, I don't want any, I'm not trying to create disciples or anything, people to think like me. I'm just saying, put your thinker on for yourself. And if you do it, you're gonna come to some really interesting conclusions. So
Mhm.
Ermina also says, what conversation? I don't hear conversation. I only hear bashing of God in the Bibles. She says she enjoys bashing Christianity. If you don't believe in Christianity, that's fine. But why bash it? We already covered that. So I'm not.
Also, can I
But go
add
ahead.
on that one? Yeah. I think that a religion that contains sexist and homophobic beliefs deserves a lot of bashing. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I don't believe in bashing individuals, but I sure believe in bashing ideologies
Yes.
and religions and things like that. And so Andreas Sanchez says Paul's writings are contemporary. No, they're not. Paul's writings were after Jesus died. Matter of fact, I pointed this out. I pointed this out when I was still a Christian, when I was one of the co-hosts of the Heretic Happy Hour. I said that Paul quoted Jesus exactly one time. Now, if you take people who were with Martin Luther King Jr. during his time, you look at the Jesse Jacksons and the Julian Bonds and the Andrew Youngs and the Ralph Abernathy's and all of these different people that marched with Dr. King, right? They quoted him. They quoted him for years because this was their mentor, right? There are people like for example, Oral Roberts. Oral Roberts was, was a, big time. He was one of the first real big televangelists, right? And there are people to this day, Kenneth Copeland, Creflo Dollar. They quote Oral Roberts. Why? Because if you have a mentor and you're the protege of that mentor, you're going to quote that mentor often. That's just the way mentor protege relationships work. Now, Paul says that he had a special revelation where he was caught up in heaven and Jesus taught him personally. That's what he said, or that's what he alluded to. But Paul quotes Jesus exactly one time, and it wasn't even a full quote, it's a paraphrase, and it had to do with the Eucharist. That was it. That was it. What Paul taught was a complete sea change from what Jesus allegedly taught. So, saying Paul's writings are contemporary, Dreas, no, that's not correct. You have anything on that, Chen?
Actually, nothing at this point because I'm not really familiar with Paul and his teachings.
No, no problem. Let's see. Oh, and this is one of my favorite people, Andrea. She goes by Andrea the Witch on Facebook, and her name is Andrea, and she is an actual witch, and she's responding to Armenia and says, "There's whole groups dedicated to bashing other people." So yeah, so it's funny how people will tune into something, and that's the other thing too. I don't go looking for something to bash. Everything that when I do my videos on Bible bullshit for beginners on TikTok, or I do something on Facebook, it's because this is something that I dealt with, something that I was immersed in for a long time. I don't go on anybody's page looking for trouble, but people come to my page all the time looking for a fight. And now, most of the time I'm not willing to give it to them, but then sometimes I give them the full happy meal.
Yeah, it's just it happens to me also because I don't go commenting on Christian pages and Christian TikTokers, you know. I just let them have their space. But
Yep.
these Christians are the ones that are coming to me and bashing me.
So let me do something real quick. We've gone through some of the chat here. I'm going to put the link to the program in the chat. And if anybody wants to join in, they can. And you'll show up in the green room until I let you in. Let me do this. I have to do it on my phone too, because when I do it here on Restream, it doesn't always go um, to every outlet. So I'm going to do this real quick and say, um, turn this down and say join in, because it's really cool when that's what I love about this particular platform, is that you can actually bring people on, and and they can talk about whatever too. So I put the link in there. You can join in if you're watching on YouTube, or whether you're watching on Twitter or watching on Facebook. If you click the link, then you can join in and be part of the show. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to be nice to Chen, because if you're not nice to her, I'm not going to be nice to you. Just as long as we understand the ground rules, folks. So put that out there. Let's see. Let's see. Somebody else here too. Oh, Andrea said that something she did and she got thrown in Facebook prison. Yeah, I go to Facebook jail a lot.
How about on TikTok? Do your videos also get taken down? Because my videos get taken down whenever Christians mass report it.
I got slapped on the wrist one time because I did a video that was like basically a screenshot of a conversation, of a meme that I,
Oh,
and so what I found out was is that because I called it "stupid shit Christians say," that that's what flagged TikTok. But when I took that out, I took that off the video, and it was fine. It was fine, because at that point I'm not really saying anything, not calling anything stupid or calling anybody stupid. But
yeah, it's just the shit they say.
yeah. So tender Anna Hart, she's one of my longtime listeners. She says, "I think talking about things are good. I don't think that there is a so-called God, source, energy, etc. are real. You may call it something else, but it's all one. Christ is not a religion. It's an anointing, a light that is within all life. Religion, however, was created by man to control men. Period." And Tender, I while I appreciate you, I don't believe that. I used to believe in a source, or some direction or point of origin. I don't. I just think that however the universe shakes out, that everything always existed, and it's always going to exist in some form. One of the things, this is, I got to throw this out here too, a little bit of science that you know it's commonly accepted among scientists, among astrophysicists, that the universe is expanding, that it's moving away from something. And so people say, well, that just proves that there's a point of origin. And I said, no, not necessarily, because if you breathe out and then breathe in, what you've done is you've expanded and contracted something, right? So, but in your exhale, you're blowing something out, and your inhale, you're sucking something in. And I think that the universe is now in its expansion state, and eventually it'll contract, and it'll do this over and over and over again. You know, I just believe forever. I mean, and there's some complex math that supports that, which I'm not going to get into, but that's kind of like where I land on that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not really familiar with, but I've heard of the expansion of the universe, but I haven't done much research about it, so I don't think I can comment on that yet since I haven't finalized my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, and that's cool. It's like quantum physics. What happened was is that I started learning about that, and it made me mad because I'm thinking I should have paid attention to math when I was in high school. And here I am now. I'm 60 years old, and and I'm learning all of this stuff, and I'm like, wow, my mind is blown. And I'm like, I could have been learning this when I was young. Um,
Yes, um, especially in a Christian school, they don't teach you about that stuff. Um, they even teach you that evolution is just a theory in a sense that it's unfounded. So, yeah. And then they, of course, they did not teach us about the Big Bang Theory. So I had to start from scratch when I became an atheist because it was never like fully explained to me growing up as a Christian.
yeah, and I think that this is what I believe. I think that if people would spend more time cultivating logic and reason in their own life, just basically saying, okay, does this make sense? I mean, whatever it is,
Mhm.
if you apply this logic and reason to pretty much every aspect of your life, then you say, okay, this makes sense. Therefore, I can use this, or therefore I can apply this to my life. Um, but then what happens is that when you operate in logic and reason, you develop what I call a really robust bullshit filter, right? Because somebody
Yes.
somebody will say something to you and it passes through the bullshit filter, and you say, well, that doesn't work. And you say, okay, you can politely say, well, okay, thanks for that, and keep it moving, right? And you don't have to give it any
Hmm.
air. So,
Hmm.
Chen, it looks like nobody else is gonna join in. I put the links there, and nobody's joining in. Do you have any closing remarks, and do you want to tell people how they can connect with you or how they can follow you? Because listen, I'm going to say this. I'm going to give her a little bit of hype right now. Is that you need to connect with Chen? Listen to her TikTok videos. Connect with her on Instagram, on wherever she is, wherever she tells you to connect with. You need to do that because this person is wise beyond her years. She has an incredible amount of wisdom. And the other thing that I love about it too, Chen, is that you're so lighthearted and happy and joyous, and you just really you're a really positive person. You have a beautiful aura about you. And so I think that would really benefit a lot of people. So if you can, give us some closing remarks and tell people how they can get in touch with you, and we'll go ahead and land the plane.
So thank you so much, everyone, for participating or watching this podcast. You can find me on TikTok at Chenderay. Wait, can they see my name here? On
Well, let
the
me see. Is it ChenDeri?
Yeah. Yeah, so my TikTok is
Okay.
Chandere.
Yep.
So
She
if you want, you can go check it out. And for other atheists out there who also have a TikTok, we can also go live on TikTok if you want to. So that's it for me. Thank you so much, everyone, for all the positive comments. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that we can get together and do a live on TikTok as well.
Yeah.
But But I'm going to tell you
Uh-huh.
something. You know something. You're even more impressive, like engaging in conversation than just listening to your videos. I mean, I'm just really totally blown away, and really, I'm grateful that you took the time out of your morning to come and spend time with me. So,
Yes. Thank you so much, Derek. Thank you for inviting me here.
no
And
problem.
if ever we do a TikTok, maybe we can do it in Philippine time so that
Oh
the
yeah,
Filipinos are still awake. So they
absolutely,
can also go to your account and follow you. Yeah.
absolutely. That is absolutely. We will do it on Philippine time.
Yes.
All right. You just tell me when, and I'll make sure that I make the time, and we'll make it
Thank you
happen.
so much.
All right. So everybody, you guys take care, peace and hair grease, and we'll see you next Thursday. Tommy Stewart, you're up next week, man. Looking forward to it. Love y'all and be good.